minimal disease, but can go as far as 18 months for those who have extensive drug-resistant disease. The treatment for resistant TB is also very difficult because the drugs are many and also the drugs have side effects. Currently, we are managing this TB, which is resistant to first-line drugs, with a regimen called B-Palm. The Mulago Hospital Tuberculosis Unit has two wings. We have the wing that manages drug-sensitive TB, the kind of TB that responds to the usual antibiotics of 6 months. This is the upper wing. And then we have the lower wing, where we have patients diagnosed with multi-drug resistant TB, the kind of TB which is resistant to the usual antibiotics, so it doesn't respond to the usual drugs we use to treat tuberculosis. These patients will have drugs that are for longer period, 6 months up to 18 months of treatment, and these medicines have many side effects that we keep monitoring for.
Every case begins at this reception, the gateway to recovery.
So this is the reception area for the TB ward. When patients arrive, they are received at this desk where they are registered. After being registered, they go to that station where they take off blood samples and sputum for monitoring.
Does the patient just walk in? Do you come from anywhere, or do you have to be referred?
Okay, that's a good one. So Mulago Hospital has a catchment area of about 8 districts. These districts have gene expert machines on site in their districts. So we have Mukono district, Nakaseke, Butambala, Mpigi, Nakasongola, Buvuma, Chiliandongo. Those are 8. Yes. So each time they diagnose a patient with MDR TB, the TB which is resistant to the usual antibiotics we give, the TB which takes 6 months on the minimum for minimal disease, but up to 18 months when they have extensive disease to treat. They must refer them to a specialized unit where we manage resistant tuberculosis. So they will refer the patients here with a diagnosis of resistant TB. So what Mulago does, when the patient is diagnosed, they will alert us. So Mulago has an ambulance. So the ambulance will go and pick the patient from the community, from all those districts. We pick the patient from the community, bring them to Mulago, and then we counsel them about the disease they have, this tuberculosis they have. Why can't they manage it from Nakaseke or Chiliandongo or Buvuma? It's because the medicines are not available in those lower facilities. The medicines that treat resistant TB are available across the country, actually in 17 to 20, about 20 facilities that manage MDR TB. Mulago is the largest center that manages resistant TB in the country. So our catchment area, they refer to Mulago, the one I mentioned about. This is the TB unit. Like I said earlier, this is where we keep all the x-rays and the patient's files. These are our registers. We register all these are our registers, and all the patients must have chest x-rays which show us what damage TB has done to the lungs. Okay. So a patient who has tuberculosis can have the TB germ eating up their lungs, and this affects their lung function. And that's why they begin to cough and also develop difficulty in breathing. Right. But patients, when they start treatment early, then they can prevent their lungs from getting damaged. So we call upon patients to go for TB testing early, so that when you start treatment, your lungs are not damaged by the TB. If you delay to access care, even if you're treated and you cure, you will have scars in your lungs. And these scars can cause you to have a chronic cough and a chronic ill health in terms of difficulty in breathing. And so it's important to diagnose TB early. So we give both TB and HIV services one-stop shop to prevent patients who have TB from going back and again coming for another clinic. We ensure that when you have TB or HIV, we test you. If you have TB, we test for HIV and vice versa. We do what they call bidirectional testing, and this is important because it helps us diagnose and treat you for both conditions early in time to prevent complications. And therefore here we have both TB drugs and ARV drugs in this facility.
That brings me to some questions. Out there, we believe that whenever you have TB, diagnosed with TB, then you are HIV positive.
Yes, it is true that TB and HIV are related because HIV lowers your immunity. It means diseases like tuberculosis can easily affect people with HIV. In fact, our data shows that 40% of patients who have TB are also HIV co-infected. So it's very important that we ensure that we do bidirectional testing for either. If you have TB, we test you for HIV. You have HIV, we test you for TB to ensure that we treat you early to avoid complications and suffering from both diseases. It's called a cruel duet. Both of them make the patient worse, and even management is more difficult because you must take medicines for two conditions. The drugs are many, side effects can happen. Even the drugs can actually interact with each other, and such patients must be monitored very closely.
Maybe to be more specific, so is it a must that whenever you have TB, then certainly you also have HIV?
No, it's not a must. That is why I say that only 40% of patients with TB have HIV. It's not a must, but because 40% is high, we must always screen all TB patients for HIV and put them to care immediately. On the TB unit of Mulago Hospital, all drugs are free and the drugs are available. We have free drugs that treat tuberculosis, both the first-line drugs, which treat the sensitive TB. Then we have second-line drugs, which treat the resistant tuberculosis. Then we have HIV drugs, and also drugs which manage other conditions, like Panadol when you have when there is fever, like antimalarials when there is malaria, drugs for ulcers. Generally, we also treat for other conditions because patients who have tuberculosis can also get malaria or ulcers or diarrhea, and we are able to manage all conditions on this unit.
Do you have any moments when a patient will come and the drugs are not available?
Currently, the TB drugs have always been available and HIV drugs. But sometimes you might find that they're called ancillary medications, medicines which treat other conditions like Panadol or antimalarials. Sometimes they may not be available, but most times they are available.
In moments when the drugs are exhausted, how long can that take to restore, for the hospital to restore?
Maybe 2 weeks. Yes, maybe 2 weeks. And if the drugs are unavailable, we ask the patients to go to the nearby facility and procure them.
Here, efficiency meets empathy. Each patient is screened, registered, and guided to the next stage, the laboratory. In the war against TB, time is everything. Early detection means early treatment and fewer chances the disease of spreading.
You are welcome. This is our gene expert room. This is TB lab, Ward 5 and 6, and it is within the facility of TB. It is a big place. Outside there is our sample accessioning and reception, where we receive patients and their samples. We have them registered into our TB register. The other side, we do the pre-analytical, the receiving, the labeling, the other side. Then analysis, we come in here. We are blessed that we have the biggest lab, and on the entire hill, it is only we with the most number of gene expert machines. We normally give patients 3 hours, but as regards to our SOP, the turnaround time for a gene expert is 24 hours. But when we don't have a big load, we normally give them 3 hours to sit and wait for the results. But there are patients who are critically ill. There are patients who are already admitted. There are patients that the doctor wants to take a clinical judgment. So we prioritize and have those results in the next 3 hours for the doctors to take a decision. So that also happens depending on the number of samples that we do have, because there is a time when we have a bigger number of samples and we cannot run them in just an hour or 2. So on that big machine, I've told you, we have other softwares that can be in a position to run other tests. For instance, hepatitis B viral load, HPV, hypercoronavirus on that same machine, and their samples have already been run, but we also use the same machine. So we are blessed to have this giant machine.
Doctor, maybe before we go any further, you talked about releasing these germs into the air. Now that implies that you are safe here. But how about out there where the germs have been released?
Yes, thank you. You know, in the build-up of this germ, under direct sunshine, this germ dies off. That is why they are released into the air. For instance, even when I am infected, God forbid, and I am speaking to you, but you are in a distance, 6 meters, you may not inhale these germs. You cannot be in a position to inhale, because in between there, they die off. Under direct sunshine, they die off. That is why the technical team, when they were designing this, is that to release them in the air and they die off. So even these used up cartridges, we have an autoclave. I will show you. We autoclave and then have them disposed of. That is to protect the community from getting the germ that causes tuberculosis.
Technology has given these doctors an edge. Accuracy and speed now saves lives. Behind the machines and medical files are human beings, each carrying their own battle scars. Sonko is a 30-year-old fisherman from Buvuma, Razi Island. He was diagnosed with TB, but after 2 years of being undiagnosed in the community.
Omusawo bw'agamba nti olina TB ate yakona. Nze ndowooza takola tawona. Omusawo yalaba ntidde n'anziza mu kasenge. N'aŋŋamba, Michael totya, TB akola ki? Awona. Naye okuwona kwa TB nga naawe oli munyiikivu okumira ki? Eddagala abasawo lye bagenda okukola ki? Okukuwa. N'aŋŋamba awo ne ŋŋuma ne bampa ekitanda. Era kati wano mbeerawo buli kimu ne nkifuna. Obujjanjabi mbufuna mu budde, eddagala lyonna kye njagala byakulya bijja. Abasawo batufaako kubanga ne bw'obanga ssaawa y'eddagala tebakulabye, bafaayo okunoonya woodi zonna okulaba nga bakuwa eddagala. Tebayinza kukkiriza kulya nga sowaani tezikoze eki, teziweddeeyo z'abalwadde baabwe be bamanyi, era banoonya lwaki omulala takola ki? Tafunye. Era bw'obanga teweesobola, bakusindikira waakiri omuntu n'akuleetera. Ogamba n'obanga obulamu butambula. Nfunyeemu enjawulo okuva lwe najja, kubanga najja nga nkankana, musujja nga mungi, amaanyi nga matono, nga mpeekeera nnyo, kale nakati mpeekeera naye tekyenkana kiri.
Treatment here is not just about medicine, it's about restoring dignity. Sonko's story is one of the many untold stories of TB patients whose lost hope is restored here at Mulago Hospital. But the work is not without challenges. The department faces overwhelming numbers, understaffing, and the ever-present threat of drug-resistant strains.
Definitely we're not okay. So the TB unit is supposed to have a senior consultant, should have a consultant, then an MO special grade, and then an MO. So among all these lines, we only have one MO special grade and one MO. So yes, in this unit, we should be 4 doctors, but we are only 2. Even the nursing care on this unit, we need about 15 nurses, we have only 9. Because the work we do involves not just the clinical care, but there's also the community arm. The nurses have to go to the community to ensure that the community activities are also running. Yes, including giving TB preventive therapy in the community. So if you go to a home and there is a child under 5 or a TB contact, you must give them TB preventive therapy. That is done by a clinician who must go to the patient's home. So we would like the Mulago Hospital, the government of Uganda, to recruit more personnel. To ensure that we have enough workers to do this job. It's a big job. We do a lot of work on the TB unit, and we would like to have more people so that we can do better with more numbers. In Mulago Hospital, it is free. You don't pay a single coin for TB care. When you walk into our unit, you access lab services, you access drugs for free. The only thing you pay for is the X-ray, because the X-ray is not free in Mulago, it's a pay-for service. It's about 50,000 for an X-ray. That's all we shall ask for, but all the rest is free in terms of TB care.
It's a war fought daily, quietly, bravely, and with heart. But this is only the beginning. In the next episode, we go deeper to the worlds where the toughest battles are fought.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.